call to order our May 13th Beechwood Board of Education meeting. Lori, would you like to?
Mrs. Berger?
Here.
Mr. Hood?
Here.
Mrs. Slate?
Here.
Mrs. Stricker?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. I'd like to take out section 2, point B, superintendent contract. I'd like that to remove that from the agenda tonight.
I'll second that.
Can you guys speak up, please? We cannot hear you, and the news is here to hear the story. Thank you.
I'm feeling, because of the outpouring of emails and parents who've contacted me, that maybe we should table this and wait till the new board comes on to address this issue.
And what? New board? What new board?
I'm sorry?
A new board. I'm not sure what you mean by a new board.
Well, after the election, in January, when you generally go after, when you generally renew new contracts, to do it next year when it's the
I
appropriate
think
time to do
Jeremy
it.
can speak to the appropriateness of that, but this discussion would have normally happened when we make a motion on the agenda item, and then we all get the opportunity to express our opinion, and then we vote. That's the way we do board business.
Well, if there's a motion and a second, the chairman can call for a vote on
Okay.
the motion.
I call for question. Let's vote.
Okay, let's vote.
Is there non-public comment before that part, please?
No, that'll
No.
come after.
There's no public comment today?
Yes, there is.
There's public comment, but this
Not on an
this
amendment.
motion isn't on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Berger?
No.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
No.
Mrs. Stricker?
No.
Mrs. Sullivan? Yes.
That motion fails.
Okay, on to our first item, which is recognition of guests. Dr. Stacy, would you like to?
All right, as always, best part of a board meeting is being able to recognize our guests. And Miss Danica Gorlewski, I mean, Lord, you did so well at your competition, the news showed up to recognize you. So great job. Danica has a lot of things that I need to go through here, not all of which are on this. She is the state champion on the creative lecture competition that was at the 2024 Educators Rising Kentucky State Conference. So on top of that, she will be moving on to compete in the Educator Rising Conference in Washington, D.C.
Great job.
And you were fun to have an AP Euro. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
All right, our second recognition tonight, and we will follow up with one on that I'll explain here in a minute. But right now, especially with such a large investment in our performing arts programs and the success that they've been having lately, I mean, we're going to be approving a trip to New York for the choir to be singing at Ellis Island later on. So not only that, but your sixth graders got a perfect score, right? So we would just like to publicly, as a board and superintendent, recognize our performing art instructors. Ms. Taylor Ross, please come forward.
Can I say something? I would just like to say, can y'all hear me? Is it working? I would just like to
And I think we had 10 students. And when we were in the audience, there were about 10 or 20 parents. And when I pulled up to the concert this time, there were hundreds of people there. People were parking in the post office. And as an elementary parent, I can tell you I sat through some pretty painful concerts, but hers are amazing. The quality she gets out of our elementary students, it's just unbelievable. I'm just so proud of what you've built. It's just amazing. Great job.
Also, in addition to the choir, our band and concert ensemble and orchestra, jazz band, all of that is not only multi-time state champions, but just continue to do an amazing job. I feel like every time that a show comes up, and number one, I look in anticipation, wait in anticipation for your theme and your stuff. So, Austin, I know Savannah, is Savannah here? All right, Savannah. All right, awesome. Savannah, come on up. Give us a chance to recognize you publicly. Tanner would be disappointed if I didn't say you guys do a heck of a job. Thank you so much. And we always look forward to your spring concerts. I apologize that I was not able to make it to Sweet Jazz this year, but great job, and we look forward to being able to put you guys in that new facility. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, on to our next item, which is public comment. If you have, well, I'll let Jeremy take that over. Mr. Dieters take that over for us.
If you signed in to speak, there's a spot there at the end of the table with a microphone, and we'll call these in order that they were signed in. The board has a policy that limits the comments to 3 to 5 minutes, and the first name on the list is Sharon Geiger.
Thank you very much for having me. First, let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, there's a few out in the crowd that do. I am a member of the Fort Mitchell community. I grew up here, left, and came back. The reason I came back was for my son to get an education at this school. I am a parent of a current 8th grade student and a member of the class of 1984. Over the course of the past week, I've seen a group of individuals online and in other places regarding the contract discussion that is forthcoming tonight with Dr. Stacy. I am in full support of him and this board. Dr. Stacy has been a great ally for the school and the students. The number of times that he has made time to respond to an email or help direct me to the correct person to talk to when others have not responded to emails is just one example of his goal to always be available. While we cannot make all of the people happy all of the time, I believe that he has always had the best interest of this school and this community at heart. One example of this is the permanent placement of Mr. Yankee as the high school principal. The difference between how my son has been spoken to, looked at, and listened to at the high school side between his 7th and 8th grade year has been undeniable and a huge blessing for both Elijah and myself. My son feels safe going to chat with Mr. Yankee. He feels safe and seen by both Mr. Yankee and Dr. Stacy. They are present. They are here. This is a culture shift from the past, and it is a positive culture shift, in my humble opinion. I also believe that when we are equating teacher salaries and administration, we do not fully understand the way an independent school system is set up or how school budgets and state funding truly work. There's a reason I chose to move back to Fort Mitchell and not leave my son in the Cincinnati public school system or move back to Boone or Kenton counties. All I have to look at is the sheer number of tuition students we have from schools like Connor or Boone County High School to see that. While their teachers may make a few more dollars than ours, they are dealing with a completely different set of issues. As someone who also works in higher education, it is not hard to look around and see that individuals at all levels of academia are changing careers. The number one reason the institution that I work for is losing professors has nothing to do with pay and everything to do with the culture of education across this country. I grew up here. I moved away. I came back for my son to be in this school system. Mr. Ashley, Mr. Yankee, and 1,000 other people have been part of this journey for me. Dr. Stacy has always had my back, and I will always have his. Thank you.
Next on the list is Leah Hildebrand.
Hello. I also moved to Fort Mitchell so that my kids could be in the Beechwood community. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak and express my concerns regarding this evening's motions to rescind Dr. Stacy's existing contract and approve a new one in its place. My primary concern lies in the fact that everyone outside of the board members and Dr. Stacy himself are completely in the dark as to why the previous contract is no longer sufficient. Some of the board members who sit here tonight created that contract. What has changed between then and now that it needs to be thrown out a full year before it expires? Per Dr. Stacy's interview with the Link publication a mere 27 days ago, the new construction will be complete in the fall of this year. Even if that is not the case anymore and we encounter delays and extensions, why is it imperative that this vote take place right now before most of the parents and community members have had a chance to consider the ramifications? We thought we had at least until November's election to consider who we wanted to represent us on this board to make these types of decisions on our behalf. By voting tonight, you are choosing to take that vote away from us. You're exploiting a legal technicality to force an outcome that, at least at this time, does not have the full support of the community, the parents, or the staff. Any new contracts would have been and still should be the responsibility of whoever sits on the board in November, not now. I can promise you that rushing this decision through will have consequences that no one wants to see happen. I've spoken with several teachers and other employees over the course of the last 3 days, probably more than some of the board members bothered to talk to, and they are all frustrated by the way this has been handled. They feel underpaid, undervalued, and are concerned with the lack of accountability and candor from the top. You won't see many of them here today because they're afraid of being punished for showing their concern. We will lose high-quality teachers and administrators over this decision. The resignations might not pour in tomorrow morning. They might not come after the last day of school. But when you look around after the next 3 years that you are proposing to give to him, you're going to feel the gravity of that loss. You will feel it. You will notice it. It will be noticed by everyone. Excuse me. You will not retain the roster of exemplary teachers you have now, and the caliber of applicants for vacant positions will be severely unqualified at the pay level being offered. Not one person is worth more than the entire building worth of people. Beechwood is more than Dr. Stacy. I'd like to remind the board of the code of ethics outlined by the KSBA. You are to seek involvement in your decision making by those you have been elected to represent. You represent us, not the superintendent. You are compelled to be honest. You are compelled to be honest and to surrender judgment to anyone, and not to surrender judgment to any one individual. It is unethical to allow one person or one small group of people to steamroll over the will of the public. Nearly 500 community members have asked you to vote no on this motion. I'm sure somebody has that petition with them here tonight. You'll get to see it. That number would undoubtedly be higher if the petition had more than 2 days to make its rounds. I am imploring you to please give this decision the time and space it deserves. This is not a matter that you rush through at the end of the year without speaking to teachers, parents, or constituents first. This is a decision that impacts the entire community, and we deserve a chance to hear all options and decide if this is who we want leading our district for another 3 years before we vote on new board members in November. There's doing what you can legally get away with, and there's doing what's right. Let's send a message to our children that here at Beechwood, we don't exploit loopholes and make decisions in secrecy because we think we know better. We do what's right and what's fair. Please vote to leave the existing contract in place until it expires and revisit the idea of a new contract at that time. Thank you.
Are you Laura? Laura Wooten.
Hello. Beechwood Board of Education. My name is Laura Wooten. I am a Fort Mitchell resident and parent of 2 Beechwood High School students. Since 2022, I have been fortunate to serve as the president of Beechwood's PTSA. I moved to Fort Mitchell in 2017 in large part because of Beechwood's excellent reputation. I believed at that time, as I do now, that one of the foundational elements of Beechwood's success is the faculty. A large part of the faculty's success is dependent upon the leadership of the school board and the superintendent as their appointed agent. I'm here tonight, a concerned parent and community member, to address the urgent issue of teacher pay and the board's proposal to extend Dr. Stacy's contract. During Dr. Stacy's time at Beechwood, the district has successfully planned and nearly finished a large building project. I remain supportive of the infrastructure improvements and even the increased property taxes required to finance the project. It seems, however, that the board has forgotten along the way that our teachers, not buildings, are the bedrock of our children's education. Recently, I've been saddened to watch the morale of the Beechwood faculty and Fort Mitchell community as a whole decline. To be clear, our teachers are not happy. In the past few years alone, we have lost over 20 high school teachers. That's not okay, and it's not sustainable. Since Dr. Stacy became superintendent, Beechwood teacher salaries have risen 10%. All other Northern Kentucky districts have increased teacher salaries on average 15%. The Consumer Price Index over the same period of time increased 32%. Dr. Stacy's pay has increased more than 67% over this time period. This current school year, Beechwood teachers are paid less than the state average. Today, 6 Northern Kentucky districts pay their teachers more than Beechwood: Kenton, Campbell, Boone, Newport, Ludlow, and our favorite rival, Fort Thomas. Here are some questions the community deserves to have answered. Why does the board continue to pay our faculty less than our peers in Northern Kentucky and less than the state average? What is the long-term strategic vision underpinning this decision? I have been told by many that school funding is complicated. That may be the case, but how are other schools navigating these same constraints and yet producing different results? And as it relates to Dr. Stacy's contract, it's unclear to me and the community why his contract needs to be canceled and then rewritten now. According to ksba.org, Dr. Stacy's contract does not expire until July of 25. Why is the board seeking to create a new 3-year contract? And what pay increases proposed in Dr. Stacy's next contract? I would propose the answer the community is hoping for is no more than 3%. Now is not the time to defend past decisions that the board has made. Now is not the time to pretend that a 3% increase in teacher salaries is acceptable. Now is not the time to renew a contract for Dr. Stacy when it's unclear how the board and superintendent plan to address the issue of teacher pay and attrition. Now is the time to admit we have a problem. Now is the time to create a plan that will address the constraints that exist around teacher pay and to take concrete steps to remedy these problems. Now is the time to allow our community to elect 2 new members of the school board and for that new board to decide whether to extend Dr. Stacy's contract beyond 25. I'm asking the Board of Education to renew their commitment to the Beechwood students and faculty by providing an environment that ensures our teachers are able to inspire, educate, and empower our next generation of leaders. Thank you.
Next is Andy Cullison.
Thank you, board members. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes? All right. I'd like to actually preface my remarks by saying I have nothing to say about the wisdom of whether or not Stacy should be renewed for 3 years. I actually am a Beechwood alum. My name's Andy Cullison, class in '97. I also moved back here so that my boys could go here. I'm also vice president of the Beechwood Band Boosters, a decision I may regret. Band has been transformative for them. And Dr. Stacy, you've been very supportive of that. And so I say that because I'm not here to express any anger about Stacy possibly be reappointing for 3 years, but I still think you should vote no on the contract renewal, at least in this form. And I have 2 concerns. So, well, there's 2 preliminary concerns. The preliminary concerns are what people seem to be upset about is that this seems to be structured in such a way so as to subvert 2 democratic checks on how contract renewals go. One of those is to rewind the clock on the contract so that this board can make the decision on contract renewal rather than let the contract finish out and let the new board. So it seems like there's an intent, while the board is favorable to Dr. Stacy, to revert the terms, and that undermines democratic. The second is the contract needs to be worded in such a way, or however this works, it needs to be worded in such a way so that it's not a resignation. Because KRS statutes indicate that should a superintendent resign their term, they cannot accept a new term from the board under which they resign. And that's important. This needs to be structured that way. And I have a hard time seeing how it could be structured that way. So I have 2 concerns. One is the legality of it, but the other is the democratic integrity of it. I'm just going to go through those as quickly as I can to stay within the time constraints. So on the legality of it, I called the Board of Education today and spoke with 2 attorneys, and now here I got to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. But I was trying to understand how rescind could avoid this being constituted as a resignation. So one of the attorneys I spoke with, I asked them what rescind means. I was like, do you really mean that the contract literally goes away? And when I explained what the board was trying to do, she said, oh, no. When people mutually agree to rescind, what happens is they just say, okay, from here on out, we're just not going to hold each other to the contract. And she said, in fact, when she looks at the statute, she doesn't think the board has any explicit authority to rescind a contract outside of termination or resignation. And she said, in fact, the kind of rescission they'd be doing is actually the kind of rescission you do when there is a resignation. So if there was a conversation that went something like this, Dr. Stacy says, you know what, it'd be nice if I could stick around for 3 years. How about we stop this contract now? And then we start a new one, and the board says, you know what, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's stop it now, and then execute a new contract. There's a word for that. It's called resignation. You accepted a resignation in exchange for a new contract. So on the face of it, this doesn't look like it musters up to the law if it looks anything like a resignation. And so I worry about the legality of it, and I worry about the perceptions of the integrity of the board should it look like they're doing something that isn't legal. But my other concern is a bit more fundamental. My other concern has to do with democratic integrity. So everybody's worried that the board is trying to subvert democratic processes. And this is something I actually care deeply about. The purpose of state-funded education, going all the way back to the Founding Fathers, was that we needed state-funded education to preserve the integrity of our democracy. Everybody was so afraid of this experiment, this democratic experiment, because going all the way back to Plato, he hated democracy. And why did he hate democracy? Because why would you want to be ruled by people who are ignorant and uneducated? And the Founding Father answer was, we need widespread education. So the justification for the existence of this body in this school, in its most American essence, is preserving the integrity of our democracy. Beechwood should be educating students how to be faithful stewards of this democracy. We should not be educating students on how to subvert it. And so I love Beechwood, and I love what Beechwood has done for my kids. But I love democracy, and I love rule of law more. And I have an enormous amount of respect for Dr. Stacy, but we should respect process, and I think you should vote no on the motion. Thank you for your time.
Sarah Cummins Seabury.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Is that better? All right. I can use my teacher voice because I have a teacher voice too. I'm Dr. Sarah Cummins Seabury. I am a professor and department chair at the University of Cincinnati Blue Ash College. I have a high schooler and a soon-to-be high schooler for next year. I'm actually class of 92 from Lloyd Memorial High School, so anyone from that time frame knows how big of a deal it was for me to choose Beechwood to send my kids. I saw lots of stuff explode on social media, and I have to admit that I'm not knee-deep in that because I'm knee-deep in all of these similar issues that are happening in higher education at my own university. So this is kind of parallel to that. What I could grab from it suggested that a lot of the concern was extending a contract without having a lot of information when teachers are not getting the pay raise that they do absolutely 100% deserve, and that it's the jumping of the gun, which the previous gentleman described so eloquently. I want to start by saying that I have great respect for Dr. Stacy. Every time I have had an issue, he has been willing to talk to me on the phone, not just an email, but on the phone. I think he did great during the pandemic, handling different issues with the idea of book banning over the last couple years. I have total respect for his decisions. And it may be the case that doing the request for this change in contract, whether it's considered a rescinding, resignation, whatever the terminology, it may be for all good purposes. But the optics are really bad on this. It just doesn't come across as looking good. And even if this is in your best interest, and it's in Beechwood's best interests, it just feels icky. And as someone who's watched way too many administrators in my own university get these icky kind of situations going, it's hard to get past that. Whether it's a situation where the morale has to do with discipline, that is a board situation where going back to the discipline policies and revising could be important. When it comes to the teacher pay, I will freely admit I do not understand the SEEK versus property tax, and if you're in this kind of district, it works this way, in this kind of district, it works that way. That's neither here nor there for me because I don't understand it. What I do know is that at the end of the day, the optics are bad. We have an election in November. But the election in November is bigger than the 2 board seats. This election in November includes our representatives in Frankfurt. It involves the supermajority that chose not to go with our governor's request for an 11% raise for teachers across the state. And it also involves an issue on the ballot about allowing public school funding to go to private schools and charter schools. So whatever decision is made tonight, what I implore the audience to do is to think about that when it comes to November and you walk into the polling place. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I address the question about illegality?
Yes.
As the board attorney, I want to address that.
Can everybody hear him?
I didn't want to shout this. I wanted to be able to speak it. The Dr. Stacy's contract, his second contract, was entered into in 2020 with the effective date of July 1st, 2020. And 2 years later, the board offered an evergreen clause, which is a term of art used in the public education world for an extension, a one-year extension. The original term of the contract would therefore be end on June 30th of this year. The evergreen extension, therefore, would be rescinded by agreement. I don't know who the attorney that Mr. Cullison spoke to is, but that is accurate. A rescission is just a walking away. But when that happens, then the end of the term becomes June 30th of this year. And therefore, this board, if that evergreen is rescinded, this board has full authority and actually must vote on the contract. The term of the contract, the number of years, that is based on discussions between the elected officials and Dr. Stacy, but the legality is perfectly clear. It's perfectly legal to do this. And I just want to address that one point as the board attorney.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think that is not parliamentary procedure. A member of the audience can't call for a point of order.
Public comments aren't supposed to be responded to unless you're suspending the rules. So if you're suspending the rules, point of order, I would like to also suspend the rules.
Well, no. You made a comment that said what my client was doing is possibly illegal. And I wanted to address that because I'm not going to be accused of telling my client to do something illegal on camera. And I'm just clearing that point up.
Well, you accused me of accusing you. I did not. For all I
Okay.
knew, they didn't even consult an attorney about it. So I made no accusation against you, nor did I intend to consult your integrity. But in public comments, it's supposed to just be public comment. Now, traditionally, sometimes they respond, but then the Robert's Rules of Order gets suspended. So if they get suspended, then can I ask some questions about that ever? Is there a parliamentarian? Who's the parliamentarian?
The parliamentarian is either the board chair or myself. And
Well, my question about the evergreen is, was it at the end of a contract or not?
It was to take effect at the end of the contract.
the evergreen hasn't taken effect yet.
And aren't those supposed to be rollovers that take effect at the end of the contract? Aren't they voted on in the year of the end of the contract? I'm not sure. I'm just asking a question.
They're rollovers, yes.
Okay, on to our next item, which is discussion and action agenda. We'll take a motion to approve the salary schedule and stipend schedule for 24-25.
I'll make the motion to approve the 25 salary schedule and stipend schedule.
I'll second.
All right, so as recommended to the board, this is a step +3, so right at an average of 4% pay increase for all salaried, $1 across the board for all hourly, which is in fact double of what the SEEK increase came from the state budget. So a strong recommendation to the board, and we look forward to hearing your outcome.
Anybody have any questions?
Ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On to our next item, which is the superintendent contract. We'll take a motion.
I will move to rescind Dr. Stacy's contract extension dated July 11th, 2022, and approve a new 3-year contract.
I'll second.
Do the right thing, people.
Is this a time for our comments and stuff?
Yes.
All right. First of all, I'd like to start by, Dr. Stacy has done a whole lot of great work for this school. I mean, great things for Beechwood, especially dealing with the state. I've been at Beechwood my whole life. We've never had a superintendent that could deal with the people down in Frankfurt to get things done. I think the building says enough about that. None of the other superintendents came close. I've been here 67 years. My parents graduated from Beechwood, my kids graduated from Beechwood, and after some of these emails and unsigned letters I got, I want to know if somebody thinks that I don't care about Beechwood first. So, a lot of you people don't know what this board does, and we care, we deeply care about it, and I resent anybody who thinks that we don't put the staff of this school first. Over the years, while the school board, we have had administrators, teachers, and parents that are not happy with the school board and the superintendent. It's every year, whatever it is. But I have to say, over the past weeks and months, that I feel like the morale at Beechwood right now has declined significantly. And I still believe these issues can be resolved. I believe we can move forward with who we have, but in the best interest of the school, I'm going to vote no on extending the contract right now.
Okay, I would like to share, no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
In 1978, I became a Beechwood Tiger. My mother was a teacher at this great institution for 18 years. My sister and myself are alumni. And by the end of this month, I will proudly say that I have 3 children as Beechwood graduates. I'm sitting here today as a board member, and my passion for this school and community has never wavered. And in fact, it has only dramatically increased. Why else in the world would someone put themselves through what this board has endured the past few days? The only common denominator that I can find is for the love of this school, Beechwood Independent. As a board member, our role is very simple: superintendent, board attorney, facility, and finances. Unfortunately, that gets lost in translation. I've listened to our stakeholders. I've taken phone calls. I've answered text messages. I have read emails. Please know that your voice is heard. But the negative and threatening content against this board is not only unproductive, it is the complete opposite of the Beechwood way. We only can make decisions on concrete facts. My decision to extend Dr. Stacy tonight is not only an action that was made with much thought and, quite honestly, prayer. With Dr. Stacy's leadership, this current administration, direction of the board, we all should see the clear evidence of the strong academic growth within the school, enhanced facilities, all while maintaining a strong fiscal status despite the most recent PVA assessments and being a seek-losing district. As a board member, our role is to make it the best decision for the district as a whole. And what that means, looking through a different lens, and that means looking through a different lens than many others can see. We are planning the future success of the school, which takes time, and quite honestly, it's not finished. We need Dr. Stacy's expertise and experience to finish the existing projects and short-term future goals, and to work out our long-term funding issues. Yes, I do see there's work to be done, hard work. But if you're a true Beechwood Tiger, then you've learned how to embrace hard work and not shy away from it. With effective leadership and a strong administrative team, we will continue to be successful for many years to come.
Thank you. And I would also like to add, I never thought I would have to say this at a meeting, but I want to share that the threats, innuendos that have been made by some over the last few days, either by email or Facebook, is not an effective way to advocate. However, I do appreciate the many phone conversations and emails from those of you seeking information. With that being said, I am also a proud mom of 3 graduates of Beechwood. My husband, his siblings, my mother-in-law, and her mom, all graduates of Beechwood. Needless to say, the lines run deep for me and my family within the Beechwood schools. I'm confident in the job that Dr. Stacy, the administrative team, as well as the board have accomplished in order to complete the visions of facilities, finances, curriculum for a long-term sustainability plan. We as a board make decisions based on what is best for our district and based on facts, not hearsay. We all attend training yearly and have years of experience in our positions. During our time, we have had some unprecedented events occur that we have maneuvered through with success. The board, Dr. Stacy, administration, teachers, staff work together. Nothing happens by just one person's efforts. It takes a village to make this school what it is. I appreciate all of you in this room who make that happen.
Thank you. Want to go?
For people who don't know me, my name is Noreen Sullivan. I first started on the board in 2015. I actually was one of the people who hired Dr. Stacy, and I have to tell you, he has done an amazing job here. He has done everything that the board asked of him and more. We never thought we would have a building here at this point in time. When we first got on the board, I think we were talking 2030 to even start thinking about getting a new building. And we had to up the timeline because that building was going to fail. And if we didn't have a building, we wouldn't have a school. I have deep respect for Dr. Stacy. This is not my vote is not about you. My vote is going to be no because I feel like I'm a short timer here. I'm filling in a spot. And although I feel very qualified and I have the best interests of the school at heart, I think we don't need to vote on this right now. And I think I'd rather wait till the election comes and let the people decide who they want on the school board to make that decision for them. His contract isn't up until next year. I think next year is the appropriate time to do this. I really appreciate all the people who reached out to me. I have to say, I spent all day yesterday on the phone. I didn't mind. That's part of what we do. I did get to spend time with my kids, and thank you. I reached out to those people who texted later. I heard from 61 staff members in the past week. I have had people show up at my door. I welcome your opinion. We do listen to what you have to say. We may not agree on things, but that's okay. I agree with Jeannie. Please, this is a really difficult job for us. We get nothing out of it other than the satisfaction of making this the best school we can possibly have. I hope you guys realize that. We may not always see eye to eye, but we do want what's best for this school, best for our kids, best for our city. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. First, I'd like to say I appreciate everybody who expressed their opinion in a professional manner. That was much appreciated. Some people move into our community for this special school and they leave right after their kids graduate. I'm not one of those people. I went to Beechwood. I'm fortunate to have been around Beechwood my entire life. I was here 12 years as a student. I was a student athlete for 6 years. I was a parent for 15 years. I have 2 daughters who graduated from Beechwood. I've been on the alumni board for 10 years, and I'm in my 16th year of the Board of Education. I love Beechwood. My vote, every vote I make for Beechwood is based on what is best for Beechwood, and I don't make decisions on hearsay or allegations. I'm going to vote to extend Dr. Stacy's contract because it's the right thing to do. I believe that with all of my heart. Beechwood Schools will be lucky to have his expertise for 3 more years. I don't appreciate the accusations I saw on social media. The facts are that we had asked him to extend 1 year through the Evergreen Clause when we knew we had 1 year of work. All good boards do strategic planning, and we realized we have 3 years of work for him to do, and we need his expertise. That's the driver for this vote. There's nothing underhanded about it. I will tell you one silver lining to all of the negativity It gave me an opportunity to stop and think about what this board has done, and the administration and Dr. Stacy. And I just think, wow, when you look around and see everything we've accomplished in the last 10 years, we have transformed our schools academically, and we have transformed our, through our EDGE program, and the thing that I get most excited about is our experiential learning. We're one of the few schools in the country that does that. Our facilities are amazing. You just have to look around and see, and they're going to be even more amazing in the fall. And then I think back to where we were 10 years ago when we hired Dr. Stacy, and we couldn't even have grass on our front lawn. I think our current state of our academics and our facilities speak for themselves. I'm going to vote yes.
Any other discussion? Ms. Reed, will you call for a vote?
Yes. Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
No.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan? No.
Okay, motion carries. On to our next item, which is the tentative budget. Take a motion to approve the budget for the 24-25 school year.
Can you put in for the
I'll
record?
make a motion to
I
approve the
said
tentative
Cindy.
budget for the 2024 school year.
I'll
Small
second.
things that scare me.
Okay, so part of the issue on the budget, and Ms. Wood, you may have to jump in and help me on this one, right? Because part of the fix, we're still holding a contingency of 803. Part of the fix that was in the state budget on behalf of Beechwood schools, we don't know exactly what that number will be, so we're having to hold that aside. So that is why the contingency stayed the same. Any other questions? All right.
Nope.
Ready? Yes. Oh,
we-
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Did we make a motion?
I'm not sure that.
Okay,
I
motion
missed the
carries.
motion if it was made.
I'll make
It
the
was-
motion to approve the budget.
It
That should go
it was.
before.
Amy did, and then I
Okay.
seconded
Amy did, and then
you.
okay.
I totally
I didn't hear it
missed
either.
Thank you. Thank you, sorry.
What are we on?
We just approved the budget.
All right, did we just vote on that or not? Did we all?
Yes.
Okay.
The vote?
You
Yes,
first.
we're on D.
Okay, auditor recommendation and contract. Take a motion to approve the Cloyd and Associates contract for audit services and proposed fee. Take a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the auditor contract.
And that is.
I'll second.
Sorry. That is with Cloyd and Associates, so that is just your required state audit.
Is that the same?
Yeah, it's the same auditor.
Okay, as
The
last
auditor's
year?
very good.
Okay.
Great.
And that is included. We have looked at every 3 to 5 years switching, just because that's good practice to have different people. But I think this is just the third?
Third year.
Yeah, third year.
So we will have to bid it out eventually
Yeah.
here in the next couple of years, or we'll have to do something different. But
Yeah.
yeah.
This will be the third.
This will be the third.
Yeah, this will be third.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan? Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On to our capital funds request. Take a motion to submit the capital funds request.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
For
second.
capital funds request.
We got a second? Was there a second?
Yes.
Yeah.
I second.
All right, so this is not a normal practice, but we are asking to pull down and doing a CFR from our bonding. There's a just a small percentage that you can request to do some of the facility issues. So that 133,000, we're asking to pull down water heaters, potentially a handicap van, 2 buses, et cetera. That we would move that money to pay for that, which would free up some general fund money until we know exactly how much will come from the state.
What are the 2 buses, like, are you talking?
You can go in the scope of the year. So, we bought the 2 buses from Kenton County this
Okay,
past
so
year.
actual full buses? I thought we
Full
were doing
buses.
okay.
Full buses.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I
have
thought
2.
we were buying something like with handicap access.
It's on there.
Okay, okay.
It's on there. So you can use it for transportation or for smaller, facilities issues. I mean, we have 2 water heaters down, $35,000. Instead of throwing that into the general fund, we can do that on the capital funds requests. I can't roll it into the bond, so we might as well use it for that if you all don't object.
Are these used buses? Are these used buses? I was gonna say, because 2 buses for $29,000, that's
Yeah,
pretty
for 2.
good.
If we could buy a new bus for 15, we'd buy several of them.
You can buy me one.
There you go. That'd be interesting.
All right, ready, Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On with the consent agenda. Take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, a lot on here, but most of it is normal. I will go ahead and say right out the gate, just on our announcement, earlier, Education Rising, you're approving them to attend the conference to Washington, D.C. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to NKU. NKU is helping sponsor that trip for our students to be able to go and compete in Washington, D.C. And then our choir, amazing. Will be able to, or is being invited to sing at Ellis Island. Taylor, do you mind just telling me, is that like a anniversary?
What is that?
No, it's really just we've they're looking for grants. That's going to pay for some of this, and these kids have worked really hard for many years to run this program. I think they deserve a chance to be on a big stage.
Perfect. I think the board will
Where will
agree
they
here in
perform?
just a minute. Pay application for the ongoing construction, normal. We do have a small, and I hate this to even recommend it, but we do have a small increase in our cafeteria pricing. The cost of food since COVID has increased. I mean, this will not cover that, but we'll be fine. Elementary school fees, high school course and school fees, NKU field and clinical MOA that allows NKU students to come on campus and observe. NKU option 9 MOA, trying to fast track special education teachers. So we're signing that agreement, a memorandum of agreement. NKU dual credit MOA is on. Again, all those are normal. We do have one that's not normal. Title III MOU with Fort Thomas and Dayton. The 3 of us will join together on Title III request. If you don't have over $10,000 of Title III money coming in, you don't get it. So by joining together, we'll be able to do that, be able to receive those funds. Fort Thomas will be the financial holder of the agreement. So really it's at no cost or issue for us. CDIP Phase 4 reports for all of the different things. Those are normal. Media and Production Specialist job title, because we're opening up a media design lab, we're asking you to approve a job description that would allow a professional to come in. I mean, we have so much new equipment in that lab. We need some external support. And I think that's a really good opportunity to let us see for 1 year. It's literally 2 hours a week, so it's not a large amount of time, but then we can use them and get some feedback on what it'll take to make that space successful long term. We also have some other of our business and industry partners that will be doing that in some of the other areas as well, but we don't need a job title for that. Pay date and schedule for the 24-25 school year, the request for leaves without pay, and then the other one that's not normal, we are agreeing to participate in the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So I think it's Covington, Ludlow, us, and Kenton County are doing that with the Kenton County Library Organization. Other than that, unless you have any questions, they're normal topics.
What is the Dolly Parton?
I was just going to ask the same thing. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know what would we do. Like, what
You don't have to answer that. But
well, number one, it's a Dolly Parton nonprofit that gives free books to every elementary student K through 4.
Okay.
All right, so we pay a small fee to the library to help support them and the grant option. They will come in, and every kindergartner, first grader, second grader, third grader, and fourth grader, it doesn't go through fourth, right? Is third?
It's really early literacy, so it's
Okay.
0 to 5.
0 through 5 once a month.
Okay. Get a book.
All the kids? Like all the kids?
Anybody that lives within the area.
Yeah, anybody. Yeah, right. And who could vote no against dog park?
No, I mean, right.
I had to say yes. Any other questions?
Anybody?
Ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On to information, superintendent's report.
So, a couple of things after the budget. I mean, I do have to do some public thank yous. 45 days ago, we didn't even really know if we were going to keep the lights on because of 7% budget lost due to the PVA assessments. So my public thank you is the work of Representative Banta and Senator Chris McDaniel. They did both work really hard to get a fix into the budget. Again, KD hadn't told us exactly what that number is going to be, but we do know the purpose and the language in the legislation that was passed was specifically for our situation of a very large tax increase to a seek loser. I can't even pass along how much I appreciate their work and efforts in that. On top of that, you got $8.5 million in bonding potential. So you will be able to go back and create another BG1 to come back and put in place everything that you had to take out to be able to start the front. If you pass that, we'll bring it to you in August. If you pass that, as soon as the last phase finishes, we would roll right into that. And you're probably looking at about another year's worth of work after this project finishes, because we'll have to work around some different obstacles.
And when would the BG1 be presented for that?
I've been in contact with RSA to look at passing a BG1 in August of this year.
Okay.
Because you don't want your contractor and your construction company to pull off. I mean, they're already on site, so hopefully that'll drive your bids down, and you'll be able to just roll right in to the final phase. And to my knowledge, I mean, I know each one of you have put in a request, so we're still working on to get those estimates. But with $8.5 million, I don't foresee you spending even half of that. So that really allows you a lot of flexibility even after the projects are done. And it'll increase your ability to do a CFR on some of the local internal things if you need that funding. So those two things that happened, and I know I would have loved to have seen, I'd have loved to have seen a 15% pay increase. I know there are a lot of things that weren't in, but I would be remiss if I did not explicitly thank Senator McDaniel and Representative Banta, because without that fix in the budget, we would have reduced 10 people's pay, 10 positions, frozen pay, and I would have resigned immediately, right? I mean, we all know the magnitude of what would happen if we had to eat another 7% of our entire budget. So I would be remiss. As far as the construction update, which I normally try to keep you updated on, we're still shooting for October of fall break. I mean, the front 3/3 of the building are really good. They've made a lot of progress over the last week on everything else. The bricks on, the shingles are going down. They would have started this week, but it was projected rain almost every day. So shingles will start next week. And you know, once it's dried in, I mean, you're really doing well. The thing is going to come down to the timeline. It'll come down to literally one thing: is all the specialty items for the building that have been ordered. Do they show up on time? And can we meet those installs with an increased number of workers? If we get the increased number of workers because we can park on campus in June and July, then we're in really good shape. And that's another reason why this project has been more difficult than the other. Not only are you working on the postage stamp, but employers, they don't like to send, the subs don't like to send a magnitude of guys out or gals out because we struggle to find parking. They end up parking down at the swim club and they bus them in. But it's difficult. So if we have, and once students and teachers and staff get out of the building, if we have the number of workers in June and July, then we should be in really good shape. If we don't, or we have trouble getting specialty items, then we will readdress that timeline. The back phase, it's all been gutted. They're starting to go back into framing. That'll be the next thing. The gym, they really jumped in on the gym because we're trying to have that and the commons open on day one so that students will be able to access those areas.
Is the gym running on time, like that whole project?
Gym's on time. The gym is not, the gym, I know there's a lot of work in the locker room area, but they've already completely demoed. They've sold out all the concrete for the plumbing. It is absolutely, because some of the issues that held them up over here, all those subs were on site, so they were able to relocate in the back. And so even though we struggled a little bit on the front, on the sawing of the concrete, because the plans from 2014 had a sewage line running right down that hallway. When they dug in to the under the ground, sewage line wasn't there, so they had to cut back into what we had just done and run it all the way down under the auditorium to tie it in. That was a big delay, but in the meantime, because it was delayed, all those guys could hop over here, so this one's actually way ahead of schedule. And then again, just getting your mind around if you want to move. Once I get those quotes, I have RSA and Joe Hayes working on those estimates. Then you will have to decide, before we move for a BG1, you will have to decide what projects you want to leave on, or what projects you want to be leave off. I've just given you a general list, or I've just submitted a general list of things that I know we're on, or something that you all have told me since you've heard that we got $8.5 million in bonding. So that'll be up to you guys. Outside of that, I really have nothing to relay. Working budget, that was a big one. And you saw we held the contingency the same, even with the pay increases. And as soon as we get the direct information from KDE, we'll come back and revisit that topic.
Okay. So about the auditorium building, are we still thinking that maybe if auditorium's still running behind, we can still open the building on time, or?
No.
No?
Fall break. Fall
Okay.
break.
For all of it?
Well, so
When is fall break?
fall break is the first week of October. That's still the timeline that we're hoping to get at least some
Just say all.
control. No, I will not say all. I think the most of the energy is getting in to get the common spaces open. That's the way that's a conversation that we've had with our contractor, with our construction manager, is to try to get access to the building. We want the commons and the gym first day of school. We want the facility as quick as we can get it, even if the auditorium's running a little behind. So if we can get a certificate of occupation and the auditorium be running a little behind, we'll take that. That's what we're hoping to get in October. I will let you know. It depends on how many subs we have on site in June and July, how many workers, and whether or not all the specialty items come in on time, or there's not a problem. Any other questions?
Anyone? Okay, on to our next item, which is making the agenda part of the official board minutes. Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to make the agenda part of the official board minutes.
I'll second it.
I gotta get the hearing aids.
You what?
I need better hearing aids.
All right, real quick, Mrs. Berger, Mr.
Yes.
Hood, Mrs.
Yes.
Sleet, Mrs. Stricker, Mrs.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, any other business? Yeah,
I already shared mine when Taylor was here. I couldn't help it.
okay. All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.